What's up, my archbeats of chaos? This is none other than King of the Night 57, and we're on to trading card game stuff. So, I don't get this question asked, but, I think I'm just going to make a question and answer the question. Should you be able to put a Tifa Lockhart in a Vincent Valentine deck? Theoretically, yes and no. Yes, for the fact that there's some Tifas that is an actual good support of a Vincent Valentine deck, and it runs pretty fast depending on the versions you use. And it works well with Cloud, so if you throw a Cloud in a Vincent deck, there's the part where you should. Now, you should probably take out the starter ones that cost too much to play, and probably use, let me get out my deck, for example. This is actually my Vincent Valentine deck. As you can see the cases. If you do run Tifas, I'd run at least 3 of these Tifas. This one's actually an Opus 1. I think it's Opus 1. Let me see. I think it's Opus 1. They don't really say on the thing. But I'd run this one because this one actually has haste. This character can attack or use abilities containing the cost when they enter the field. So pretty much, it could use haste. And it's a level 2 Tifa. And if you run a fire in your Vincent deck, if you run a Cloud that's fiery in your Vincent Valentine deck, then this Tifa would be a good idea, but I wouldn't run the starter Tifa. And if you're going to run a starter Tifa in your Final Fantasy VII deck, then it should be in the Cloud deck specifically, because Tifa and Cloud work together, if anything else. But if you do run a Tifa in a Vincent Valentine deck, and I'm in detail of running the Vincent Valentine meta deck, I'd run one of these or a Legendary. But Legendary's kind of, Legendary Tifa's kind of, a gray area. It depends how you use that Tifa, if anything else. But if you do, you want to run at least around 3 of them. Let me go find the other ones, because I know there's other ones in here. Because these are 2 costs, which is really easy. Just give up 1, or at least tap 1, or tap 2 of your backups, theoretically, so you can keep your card in your hand. So, And because I run fire in my Vincent Valentine deck, the only win I run is that Yuffie, because Yuffie can get summoned as long as there is a Vincent on the field and it costs 0. Plus, Vincent gains 1,000 power. Which is really good. Which is actually really good for this stuff. Then I also run darks and lights like Chaos, of course. But, I didn't come here to tell you that. I think I only run 2, actually. So I cut my Zongans down. Because Zongan costs 4, but he can get Tifas in your hand. Now, these are for Tifas inside of a Vincent Valentine deck, if you want to run it like mine, if you want to run a Vincent Valentine deck the way I run it, then only these 2 Tifas and this Zongan. The starter Zongan could stay, but only cut it down to 1, because you don't necessarily want to run too many Tifas in a Vincent deck, because Tifa does not really run well with Vincent exactly. Unless you have Cloud, unless you have the Fire Earth Vincent, meaning that you run Fire and Earth characters, or creatures, or whatever you want to call them. Earth, Fire Element, and I do run Earth, Fire Element, so since I run Earth and Fire Element, then these Tifas are really good because they're only 2 costs and they gain haste. Plus there's a Zongan to put one in my hand, so I can use a backup, 2 backups, and just tap the 2 backups. And then after I tap the 2 backups, I don't have to give away anything in my hand, and this can instantly attack. Plus, I can always, for the cost, I can always use the other Tifa as a fodder, or anything in my hand that's a fire. So, theoretically, Tifa cards aren't bad, but I would only run at least, if anything, run 2, cut back to 2 Tifas, and only the Tifas I just shown you. I mean, I don't know what the Legendary Tifas do, because I'm still new to this card game. I'm still learning a lot about the Final Fantasy card game. And Steel Sky, my, sensei in the Final Fantasy card game, because he's the one who taught me all this. You'd have to ask him all the questions. That's how I'm able to know some of the stuff. But maybe you can actually run legendaries inside of legendary Tifas inside of a Vincent deck. So I gotta look that up too, but I'll probably ask questions. But theoretically, I don't think a Tifa's necessarily bad as long as you run a fire in your Vincent deck, as it's Vincent's Earth. And you can choose to run the two elements that are the best to run with Earth is wind or fire. I choose fire because in my opinion, and this is my biased opinion, I think the cloud stuff runs better with a Vincent. I think anything dealing with cloud strife runs better with a Vincent. I think the reason why that is because they do exactly the same thing, and they power each other up. This is actually a light cloud from Opus 1 for sure. It's actually the front cover card of Opus 1. But Cloud and Vincent power each other up really well. So in my opinion, I run clouds in this, but not all of them. Just only like I said, the only ones that really run for like clouds is the Opus ones, like the one I just showed you. This one, and where is the other one? This is where I think you want. Why I tell you want to run that Tifa, because I think this is why I said you want to run that certain Tifa, because the other clouds I have in this deck is exactly like exactly like the two fire clouds I have on the classic Final Fantasy VII clouds right here. They're 2 costs. And if you have any other 4 that's not Cloud, that's Final Fantasy VII, such as Tifa, Vincent, Barret, or any kind of deck combination, even if you run an Ice and Fire, a Burn and Ice deck like a Sephiroth and Cloud deck, this Cloud gains 2,000 attack. Not to mention, when Cloud enters the field, choose 1 forward and deal it 2,000. So it can instantly deal 2,000. So if they want to block, they'll lose their cards as well when that Cloud enters the field. So, and this is only a 2 costs. That's why I said if you run any kind of Tifa inside of a Vincent Valentine deck, you want to run the Tifa that's from the same set as this Cloud, which I already have and I just shown you right here. That's the one you actually want to run. And then run this Cloud because it's a lightness and it's a cost of 3, and you got a powerful monster you got a powerful forward until Vincent enters the field, such as this Vincent, until this Vincent enters the field. That way you can overwhelm your opponents with the power you have with those things. But if you run any kind of Tifa, I would run the one I showed you. Now, to each their own. It depends how you build your deck. And I'd go on YouTube and look up the Final Fantasy trading card game stuff, or watch trading card game related channels or something like that. I would, do that kind of stuff, like, try and learn the trading card game by watching YouTube videos, or go to actual tournaments in your card store, whether you have a Clutches Cash or whatever does your card, does your inventory for Final Fantasy cards. Or go look up on YouTube to find out more, because there's people that know more about this. Or ask my bud Steel Skies, because he's the one who trained me in the Final Fantasy TCG stuff. And I'm also going to promote his artwork too. Go buy his perler beads, because he taught me everything there is to know about the Final Fantasy TCG. So, I would be appreciated if you go support his perler beads on Instagram. Steel Sky, Instagram.com. They're $5 a pop, but they're really good. They're really cool. I mean, I don't own one myself right now, but eventually I will. But nonetheless, I am sponsoring. Oh yeah, another female character you want to run in the Vincent deck, which is kind of unconventional because she's one of Vincent's enemies in the game. But Rosa the Crimson, because Rosa the Crimson, this one, if it's received, it reduced the damage by half of the numbers rounded up by the units of 1,000. So pretty much having other backups or forwards are pretty good with this. Plus she's a cost 3 of a fire. If you run any females in a Vincent Valentine deck, I think the best one to run is a Rosso. But if you do run Tifa, like I said, you want the 2 cost Tifa. But if you really want to run any good female characters in a Vincent Valentine deck that's of a fire and earth element, then Rosa the Crimson is really good for that. And I think Rosa the Crimson's from the same Opus. even on the game, she's actually one of Vincent's enemies. It's, you know, she's still pretty good for that deck because, oh shit. Oh fuck. No. Well, it looks like the ground shuffled it for me. You know. Only reason I took out the front card because this is the front card. Or for like, if you have 80 summons, irregardless of the element, I'd also run a Iridia. I would run this Iridia specifically. I would run this Iridia specifically if you can see it. I don't know if you can. The picture's too light. It's not holographic, but let me tell you the fact. When you're in instance food, you may search for one summon and add it to your hand. Now this is only a backup, so maybe you might want to run the Tifa combo. Maybe you want to actually run the Tifas, the Tifas I just shown you, and a Rosso for like the female support, and then any other things like Cloud and WRO stuff, such as, let me go look for the WRO stuff if I can, find it, or WRO stuff. You have those on the field until you get this Vincent out. Once you get this Vincent out, you can make the game over. Now, there's still some cards I need to put in this deck, but to answer, I think, I'll be honest, yes, you can put a Tifa inside of a Vincent Valentine deck, but it has to be the specific one I showed you. And someone could school me and teach me something else. So until further notice, until someone tells me otherwise, yeah, you can run it. Until I learn otherwise, if you could put a legendary Tifa inside of a Vincent Valentine deck, I would suggest running the Tifa cards I just shown you right here. And they're not really expensive cards. The Tifa cards are in the common box, so you could get for roughly 15 cents. 15 cents a piece, depending on the card store you go to. If you have a Collector's Cash where you live, then it's 15 cents, because that's what they do with their commons, because they still sell their commons, because, not every single deck is built like expensive decks. It's not like how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is now, where you have to buy the most expensive deck in order to chance of winning. Final Fantasy's card games actually runs differently. You're going to need at least some commons, but you got to be very wise of which commons you have to have. Make sure it absolutely runs well. Now, the reason why I say Tifa runs well in my personal Vincent Valentine deck, because it's an Earth and Fire element deck, and Fire and Earth run each other really good because they're about dealing damage. Now, Final Fantasy card games, just like Magic the Gathering, you have to play by the archetype you're good at. In Magic, I played Planeswalker, so I was about healing. So in the Final Fantasy TCG, I kind of switched it up. I'm all about doing damage to my opponent, and I put a lot of fire and earth summons in here as well. But yes, you can run the Tifa Lockhart, but it's just the specific ones until I get confirmation if you can run a legendary Tifa, and I might have to look up what the legend Tifas look like and read the effects. So if I'm wrong, I'll let you guys know. But yes, you can run a Tifa in a Vincent Valentine deck. Yes, you can.